Yeah, I'm Margus. I'm a Swiss, Swedish, Canadian, Estonian, which probably explains why I have an accent in every language I speak. I don't know what I sound like to you guys. I sound American to myself. But I do service design. I work in a company called Brand Manual, which started in 2009. And we have, what I'm going to take you through is a sort of a convoluted story of how we think about service design and user-centered design. And it's convoluted because the company we started we started with a very strong marketing background from advertising, from design, graphic design, branding, and all that kind of stuff. So our approach to service design has been very much colored by this idea of brands, branding, and how companies should really work. And a few years ago, I found this fantastic quote by a guy called Peter Drucker, who's a business guru, apparently. He's written several books, and he said something that just hit me, that, you know, the basic purpose of business is to create a customer, and there's only two functions that create any value whatsoever, and that's marketing and innovation. And all the other functions are a cost. It's, accounting just costs money. It's not there doing anything except keeping track of the money. And if you think about this, it means that marketing becomes much more than what it is in the marketing department. It's everything that a company does. From beginning to end, everything should be marketing the company. It should be helping to sell a product. If it's not doing that, then you shouldn't be doing it. And innovation is really, making things easier to use for customers, if you think it like that. So as an analogy, the everyday analogy is this, that if you exercise and eat a balanced diet, you will lose weight and you will feel better. That's guaranteed to work. This is marketing and innovation in the human being. Everything else that anybody tells you about getting in shape and losing weight is bullshit. Doesn't work. But it's interesting how much we love to fool ourselves all the time. And Forbes did some research asking, what are managers actually involved in their business? And it's not marketing and innovation. They're dealing with everything except what creates value. Scary, isn't it? So if you have this approach to business that everything that is important you don't do, but everything that isn't creating value you do, it's sort of like having this attitude that, I've exercised for half an hour, now I can get that double cheeseburger, the fries, and I'll have the small Coke, the Diet Coke, just to fool myself again that I'm doing something valuable. Does that make sense? I mean, it's scary what we do. So where we, as a company, came to is that service design, or user-centric design, or UX, however way you want to explain it, design thinking, is actually, it's combining the function of marketing and the function of innovation in one go. So by improving the customer experience, making things easier to use, easier to share, you're innovating by default, which creates marketing because people talk to each other. So this works very well. And it's really about making things work the way we expect them to work as customers. That's all we want, right? Does that make sense? Everybody with me? It's lunchtime soon, so everybody's falling asleep. But making things work the way we expect them to work is how we like to look at service design. And, the world doesn't work that way. I have a few clips to show you how it doesn't.
It won't open because it's a security door. Okay.
My leg! What are you moaning about? Didn't even touch it. We're fucked. What the fuck are you two doing?
So they had the problem with some usability there. The explanation is in this film.
There's this door on the 10th floor of the Vox Media office that I hate so much.
God damn it.
You ever get this door wrong?
Pretty regular.
Pretty regularly. I couldn't cut that at Y. It was strange. But I mean, the thing is that things don't work the way we expect them to work on a daily basis. We have problems all the time with little small details that are irritating, and then we don't. I mean, we have options, and we run into situations like this that, it doesn't make any sense. From a usability perspective, it's a catastrophe. From an engineering perspective, maybe the engineer behind it had a difference between cancel and no. For most people, it's confusing. And what we do as people when we run into this situation is that we don't. There's, from the company's perspective, there's often the thing is that the customer will have to learn to get over this. But the usual reaction from a user perspective is that we actually don't learn at all. We go backwards. We say, we don't want to take part in this at all. Let's leave. So these kinds of situations are created where customers can't use things, and we expect them to learn things, and they don't. And what kind of impact does that have now? I mean, since the Second World War, all the way to about 10, 15, 20 years ago, we had this situation where we could push out anything to anybody and tell them why they need it, because that was the way the business worked. This was sort of the advertising, communication, marketing, or whatever department you wanted to know. We are in a situation where we're here. You have absolutely no control over what you say about your company or your brand anymore. It's all about the user experience that influences what one customer tells the other customer about buy this or that product. If you want to buy a 60-inch 4K TV today and you walk into the electronics store and you see a massive wall of TVs, you probably turn around, back out, and start Googling. And then you find some people who say that TV is really good, and that's the one you should buy. And then you Google around some more, and you find out that there's a store next to there's a store further away that has it at a cheaper price, but you find the store that's closer to you says that they will price match anything. So you actually go to that store closer and say, I want that TV with that price, please. That's where we are. And the fact is that 92% or more than 92% of purchases are made based on recommendations. And that is the user experience working. That is the user experience influencing purchases for everybody in anything. And I think this number has always been there. I think it's probably a constant. The difference is that with the internet, we have much more access to many more friends, right? So there was a Japanese professor in the 1980s. He defined how we look at products, how we buy things. He said that there is a hygiene factor, stuff that we depend on when we buy it. In case you're thinking cars, the car has to drive. We expect this is the hygiene factor. And you think about the difficulty of the hygiene factor is actually making a car drive is making 5,000 moving parts work together to move a piece of metal down the street without exploding. That is really, really difficult to do. That requires engineering. It's where all the investment goes into, but actually it's just a hygiene factor for customers. And in most cases, most products and services that we're buying, the hygiene factor is the difficult part for companies, and it's just a hygiene factor for customers. Without it, we wouldn't even be looking at you. But it's nothing special. You haven't done anything yet. Then there's the linear factor, where we understand what we're paying for. The faster it goes, the more expensive it is. The less gas it uses, I know what I'm paying for. I get a bigger burger, costs more money. I understand. It's very simple. More is more, less is less. But none of these create any loyalty. This is the stuff that you expect in products that they actually work. Quality is universal. All cars drive, all planes fly. Where loyalty comes in is actually here, in something he called the delightful feature. Something you didn't even know to expect, but which is the thing that you actually talk about when you get it. And this is, if you think about this 4K TV again, the delightful feature in the 4K TV is actually maybe not even the TV. There was a guy who told me a couple of weeks ago, the best thing about the new TV he bought was that it was delivered to his house, it was set up, it was made to work, they took the old TV away and all the packaging with it. So he had no garbage, he had nothing left, it was just clean. And because a 60-inch TV comes with, 5 yards of packaging, getting rid of that is really difficult if you're living in an apartment because you can't throw it in the garbage chute. You actually have to drive to the recycling center. It's going to take a day to get rid of. It's a pain in the ass. But this was the delightful feature. It was the delivery of the TV to make it work. It had nothing to do with what he bought. But that's the thing he remembered. Because the TV just works. Right? I think you've all been in the same situation. Recognize this? So there's this gentleman. He said once that you have to start with the customer experience and work backwards to technology. And that way you can actually deliver what you want to deliver in the way the customer would expect it to be delivered. But if you start with the technology first and then try to figure out where you're going to sell it, all you're going to end up doing is lowering the price or giving away 2 for 1 or whatever else thing you can think of because the product isn't moving. So it really is a conflict between this old way of working that I think even in whatever situations, in whatever companies we work with, whether it be banks or industrial giants, there is this logic that they have this thing and we can just push it to the market and then we discover, oi, this doesn't really work very well, so then we start fixing it. But it always starts with, hey, we came up with this thing, we're sure it works. And we hope to the best that it does. The approach that we all should use and that we do use is you actually just look at customer behavior. How is it really? And then you understand the problem you can solve for them. And from there, you deliver an innovation, a very simple solution delivery that makes more sense. And if you think about this, you know Heinz ketchup? It used to come in a glass bottle, right? You had it like this, and then you wait for half an hour, and then you hope something comes out, and then it goes bloof, like this. That was sort of, they tried to cover it with advertising. They said good things come to those who wait. Then Guinness took that, and they couldn't say it anymore. But you had the glass bottle. And the problem for customers was that by the time the ketchup comes out, the French fries is cold, in parentheses. So what they did was innovate. What was the innovation? It was a plastic bottle. I mean, how big an innovation is this? It wasn't very big, but it was solving a customer behavior problem. How do I get the ketchup out of the bottle? And it was a very, very small thing for customers, if you think about it. They moved from glass to plastic bottle, nothing big. But from the company perspective, it required a complete retooling of the factory and a complete redesign of the whole supply chain of how to package the product. That's a huge investment on the company side, and for the customer, it was just a little bit of an experience. I can get the ketchup out now. The interesting thing is now if you think about environmentalism and everything else that's going on, they could probably innovate their way back to a glass bottle and say this is environmentally friendly, whereas making a plastic bottle out of oil really isn't. So they could go back to the old ways of doing things, and they would again be delivering a new solution. Because I think customers today are more environmentally aware than they used to be 10, 15 years ago when they came up with the squeezy bottle. So, you can use this behavior and design new solutions. And it's really about, not asking them what they want, but observing what they do. Now, this is from Sweden. There is a thing where you can try to, you can turn down the sound, it doesn't matter. Where she's trying to use the digital terminal for buying tickets. And obviously it's not the right size, and she can't do it. So she goes to the window next to the gates where they used to sell tickets in the old days, but they stopped selling tickets there because they installed these machines. So she actually goes there, and she gets even more frustrated because the gentleman in the ticket office actually just directs her now across the aisle to the kiosks where they now actually do sell the tickets, which were, it becomes a really big problem. And this terminal is completely unusable because it doesn't make any sense whatsoever to almost anybody. But it was designed without ever testing on a single customer. It was just delivered, and they hoped for the best. And this kind of experience spreads incredibly fast. Sweden, which is known for being innovative and digital and so forth, when you buy load your ticket to your Oyster card version in Stockholm, it gets transferred to your ticket in 1 to 3 days. Think about that. I mean, who ever thought that was a good idea? I mean, how many people do you have to talk to? So the thing is that the approach we use, and I think any good, whether it be a website or it's a physical store or it's, a new pair of shoes or whatever, asking people what they want, you're going to get only half the truth, and the half of the truth, you won't even know which one is true and which one is wishful thinking. If you go to customers and ask, do you want ecological products? Yes, they do. When you check what are they buying in the stores, most of them are buying the cheapest thing because the price difference in many cases is too big. So it doesn't make any sense. But if you observe what they do first and then ask them, why did you do that? 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 You get to some kind of truth. And it's much more effective. But actually talking to real customers, if you notice the little comics on the first slide, is that we don't want to talk to real people. It's scary. Most of the companies that I work with, getting and convincing them to actually talk to real people, it doesn't happen. It's very, very hard. And they get scared of talking to real customer, and they are very skeptical of qualitative data. How many people do you need to talk to when you're testing a new website or a new function? It's 3 to 5 people. You get 70-80% of the mistakes immediately. But they want a representative amount of data, which is hundreds of thousands of answers of something or the other, and it's completely useless gibberish. So, I mean, working with this qualitative data is scary, but, I mean, in real life, you have situations like this. I mean, really, how hard is this? It is not hard. How much observation do you do to get to this point? It's a no-brainer. So, I mean, using this qualitative data, using actual customer insight to develop new services and products, whatever they are, whether digital, online, offline, middle, whatever, this works so well if you dare to talk to real people. And I made my time on time. If you want to read more, make Amazon richer. They don't have enough money yet. Thank you.